similarly am aglow with the idea of being able to show this beautiful space. So when you were remarking about that space that is comfortable to be in, and somehow I think it helps enhance the work on the wall. And so I'm grateful for that and for that opportunity. And thank you so much for coming. Hello. So I'm going to walk around, but I'll talk, and if you want to ask me questions as we go, this is not a formal presentation. I will be happy to take them. Although I am going to cover a number of things, such as source material, and you might call it inspiration, if you will, my process, and then I'll even talk about the nitty-gritty of putting the collage together. So I'll get to some of those things. So don't ask me that right away. When I get to that particular subject, feel free to talk about it. And just because I'm going to open up the conversation by quoting myself. Why not? This is a nifty catalog that Adrian put together, and I'm going to read from it. About the collages alone. Whether they are painted, printed, or found, putting the cut and torn paper shapes of my collages through their paces, balancing one kind of texture or shape against another, watching their interrelationships evolve and change is exciting for me. I am the artist-composer, visually orchestrating the whole from all of these disparate parts. The work may be a response to a feeling, or an event, a form in nature, or the material itself. I never know quite how it's going to resolve itself. And in the best cases, there is discovery and a sense of surprise. This is the adventure of making art for me, whether it be painting or collage, both of which are in this show. This is why my work, though it's often referential, must in the end be abstract. And so what you're going to be looking at here are a variety of collages that have been done mostly in the last few years. And there are reasons why I turned to collage. Collage is one of the wonderful mediums that can be used in many ways. In some cases, it can be used as a tool to come up with ideas, to be a relief from another medium that you're working with, because I'm a big believer in working with more than one medium. I have myself, and I think that it's a healthy thing to do. It's also helped solve problems in one medium to move to another medium. But collage also served another purpose for me. Although it's something that went way back to the 70s when my first show ever was a collage show. These are all recent, and they had a lot to do with my life. And perhaps someone said that this was the most personal show that you've ever seen of mine. Someone who had seen my work over time, and in many ways, I guess you could say that that might be true. My husband had been ill for 8 years. 8 years at home, suffering a severe stroke, and all kinds of complications. And I darted in the studio and out, and in the studio and out, and in the studio and out. And then I go to the studio, I could move a piece of paper. And I could go out and do whatever else I had to do, pick up the medications. Then I go back and move another piece of paper. In other words, it had the quality, something that not quite the same sustained quality that you have to have with some painting, or even printmaking, that I could adjust and change and move things around at different times of day, and ultimately I had to focus on it, of course. But it suited me. It suited the whole idea of the fragmented life that I had, in fact. And then there was this other thing that occurred to me. My goodness, why didn't it occur to me sooner? For many years, I've been teaching a course called Fragments into Wholes. W-H-O-L-E-S. Fragments into Wholes. And that's a mixed media course that I teach. I've been teaching forever. A mixed media course that I teach, which has a lot of focus on collage. And a lot of the techniques, a lot of the things that we did in class, I wasn't doing in my studio. And I said, I wised up, and I said, well, why not? Why shouldn't I take some of these things and start using them in my own work? And so that's what we're going to see. When I just quoted you from myself about what is it about collage, and by the way, it isn't just me feeling this way. I can quote a lot of people. One of the best people to quote, by the way, I have all these quotes because I kept thinking I was going to write a book. Robert Rothenberg was a great thinker, And he often talked about the importance of collage to him. I'm not digressing, I just think that it's very relevant. He would say, collage became my joy and has been ever since. It has another function. Sometimes I get stuck in painting, as everyone does. And often after shifting to collage for a time, I may resolve the painting problem. Essentially, a collagist takes a lot of disparate elements, which I think you'll see here, disparate elements, and places them. And the problem is, given these disparate and conflicting elements, how to ultimately pull them together, how to unify them. It is a painful and precarious way of making order. The separate elements tend to carry on guerrilla warfare with each other, and it's a source of tension, but also of chaos. So what I like to do is make order out of chaos. And that seems to suit the working with the collage medium. And so most of the work in the show is collage, except for two paintings, which I'm also going to refer to because they have a separate special meaning. But I think we'll start with the collage. So, okay, let's look at specific ones. Since you're all sitting over here, and we can look over here, and there's pretty good light on it. You might say, well, what inspired this? Well, in this case, material inspired this, just the touch of it, the feel of it. And I got carried away by the idea of sandpaper. That doesn't mean that I always have to work with sandpaper, but it means that a group of these collages, many are on the back wall and around the wall here, the common element is sandpaper, the grit of it, the roughness of it, the touch of it. But I also like to make things difficult for myself. I don't want to just use sandpaper. I want to use, I don't know, it could be Bounty paper towels. It could be elegant mulberry paper. It could be, and here's where you might call it a form of recycling, bits of snatches of something that I printed once. I love to save everything. That's also kind of an essential if you're a collagist, save everything. So that you will find bits and pieces, especially in the large ones, which I'll talk about in a moment. You will find bits and pieces of my printmaking, which is monotype primarily. I'm not a printmaker in the sense of making editions. I like to work with prints, but I also like to tear them up afterwards. My students know that. And we do that in class. This particular piece down here, which an artist friend of mine bought, and I was very pleased, is specifically called, and I have to bring this name up because he's one of my heroes. We all have heroes, right? Visual heroes or literary heroes or whatever. This is one for Kurt Schwitters. Now, Kurt Schwitters, I'm amazed when people don't know who he is. I even bought a book today in case somebody wanted to see what he is, who he was. He really brought the whole concept of collage into the 20th century vocabulary. Sure, Braque and Picasso initiated the idea, but Kurt Schwitters ran with it. And he picked up garbage everywhere. And he, you know, there were a lot of reasons why he didn't have a lot of money, and it was during the war, but basically he managed to make order out of chaos, which is what I said I like to do too. So this is using the sandpaper, using these edges, and that's the other thing. Edges don't all have to be the same. They can be rough and smooth and torn and cut. He would put together, it's my ode to him, and I would say that almost any number of collages here could be my ode to Schwitters, because I really find that he's endlessly an inspiration for me. Let's try and look at these, because they're behind you and we can just turn and look at those. I like to work at different scales. I'm sure a number of the artists here can understand that. And sometimes, and this is rather important to me, I don't know where they're going. Not only sometimes, I would say always, I don't really know where they're going. And I've been consoled by reading other artists. Just 2 weeks ago in the New Yorker, there's this wonderful three-dimensional artist called Sarah C. S-Z-E. Okay. And she's put up something that I have yet to see on the High Line, a multi-dimensional, she's a sculptor essentially, but she does some collage. And she said in this article, the most interesting moments in my work tend to be the ones I least expect. The idea of knowing exactly where you're going is overrated. Now, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Mostly because it's the way I work. And the way I work is I don't know where I'm going. You know? And so I start something and, okay, where's it going to go from here? But what I do love is combining. So what you will see here, let's take this one for example, is to refer to some of the things that I've already mentioned a little bit. You'll see some printmaking, or these are called transfers actually. They're not so much printmaking as transfers, which we have a special magic way of doing in our class. And you could get it via the wonderful Xerox machine. But I combine it with hand painting. Why? I don't know why. I just love this mixture. I love soup. I like to make soup. I like to make stew, and so does my work like that. And also color. And believe it or not, some people who are seeing this show and have done seen my work before might wonder, why doesn't she work in bright colors? Because for so many years I worked in bright colors. I was known as a colorist, believe it or not. And that's not the only reason. The reason has more to do with my life situation, as I started to describe. So we have the mixtures, we have the transfers, we have the hand painting, torn again, we have some printmaking, and we put it all together. And one of the things I wanted to show you that I found perfectly fascinating in life is that after I do my art, life imitates it. It's not the other way around, okay? And I'll give you a little idea just in words. I was doing seeds for a long time, seed form, because I love shape. I just love shape. I'm not a sculptor, but I love shape. And then my first grandchild was born. And I saw what a sonogram looked like for the first time. And I was doing sonograms a year before he was born. You know, I thought, gee, this is terrific. Then, not everything that I've done is so specific, but I have also found myself doing, I love fungus. And you'll see several, which I'm going to talk about afterwards, on the mantelpiece. Those are all part of my collection. Now, I consider them sculptural. I mean, I just think they're wonderful. They also are very, very inspirational to me. But there are some fungi that are crenellated and they almost look like brain tissue. You know, they're kind of like the brain. And I found myself including those shapes in paintings, and none of them is here exactly. But then my husband was diagnosed with stroke. So things like that are happening, and then there's a third issue which we'll come up with later. But what I want to show you is a little less severe than what I just said. Just a moment, stay there. I was looking at this piece, and a good friend named Toby Wells said, "Oh, this looks like a bower." Now, a bower is something that my son David, who spoke here last week, talks about in chapter 1 of his book. A bower is something that this particular bird, the bower bird, builds for himself. And it's an incredible structure that, well, I won't go into the chapter, which is interesting in itself, but it's an incredible structure that he builds that looks sculptural in and of itself. And I did this, and then just about a few weeks ago, I was walking in the meadow across from my house, and where I have lived for 43 years. This is the most blissful place you could imagine in terms of nature and inspiration. And I came across this, I took this picture, and I saw this picture in the meadow. And you might say, well, what's that got to do with anything? You might say, what's that got to do with anything? But I saw the orange leaves, this is before spring, and I saw this complete kind of chaos of branches and dryness, and I said, it's like a bower. Well, I probably wouldn't have seen it this way if I hadn't made that way, and if Toby hadn't named it the bower. And all of those things coming together, I just love when things like that happen. At any rate, or maybe I'm making them up. Whatever, it's fun.